there, everyone. Today, we're here to talk to you about Pablo. Pablo is a fictional youth who's 20 years old. He was born in the U.S. of Latino parents, and when he was growing up, he lived in a disadvantaged family. So his parents had problems with substance abuse, and so throughout his childhood, he spent a bit of time with his extended family. And due to this, he had trouble getting his education and ended up dropping out of high school and is now struggling to find work. Normally, with the Latin American Youth Center, this is the perfect case that they'd be looking into. They'd be wanting to plan him a future of finding education, of finding a job, and becoming a productive citizen. But unfortunately, they're currently at the end of their resources. And so we want to be able to grow so we can plan out Pablo's future. So currently, what we're going to go through today is first look at the challenges that we're facing, and then focus on solutions. So currently, LAYC is the product of a program that's churning out disadvantaged DC youth due to an income and education gap. So currently we have programs that are working very well to combat this, and they've actually been very successful, as we've grown to dealing with over 4,000 kids now. But with success breeds more success, and that's why we need to be able to expand into the future. So currently at the top of their mind is their funding situation. So they're 74% funded through government grants currently, which meets the current needs, but it makes it tough to expand in the future, which is why they've reached out into many different avenues, whether it's a fundraising event, a large gala, or a happy hour. They're trying to connect with their donors and really get more out of individuals. But we think they need to go even further. So the reason they need this is back in 2013, when there was a government crisis and they shut down, they really had to rely on Capital One banks that stopped from their programs going under. And we think this is a very dangerous situation for a lot of these at-risk youth who need their safe housing and their programs. In addition, as we want to grow into the future, these government grants are typically restricted to a certain program, and so creating new programs is a bit tougher if you have to focus currently on only what you're doing. So what we want to do is we want to focus on planning for Pablo's future. So much like when Pablo comes in and we would work with him to essentially become a productive member of the community, get his education, and work towards getting a job, we want to think about that as we go about looking for further funding to be able to support that dream. So first of all, we're going to be engaging. So we're going to be transforming more of our volunteers into donors and creating a closer link with the community. Secondly, we're going to be teaching. So we've talked a bit about PYD and how it's been successful, and we want to be able to bring that to local community colleges, or to local colleges, to be able to teach that program and create another revenue source. And then finally, we'd like to work on partnering with successful corporations with mutually beneficial programs. So as we do this, we'll be able to plan for Pablo's future with the further funding that we get as we plan for our own. Now Suren's going to talk about Engage.
Thank you, Soren. So the first part of our strategy is engaging the volunteers in order to transform them into donors. So currently, the organization reaches out to the volunteers for extra manpower help. However, there's no formalized process to aim to transform them into the donors going forward. And we really want to address this gap because according to a Fidelity study, the donors will donate 10 times more to the organization than they regularly volunteer at. And in order to do this, we want to have two parts to our program. First of all, we really want to design really fun voluntary opportunities that our volunteer will really want to participate in. And secondly, we want to gamify their volunteer experience and achievement with us to make it fun, slightly challenging, and fulfilling. So how are we going to make all these possible? Through a combination of two softwares and a dedicated staff member to volunteer coordination. So Logistics is a backend software for volunteer management. So this is really our means to a formalized volunteer cycle, beginning from recruitment, onboarding, to engagement during their experience, as well as awarding their achievements with us, as well as afterwards, offboarding, and continuous engagement afterwards. However, Slack, on the other hand, is a communication mobile app for the volunteers. This is really a platform for them to talk to each other, stay updated about events available, share their experience with us, as well as creating a sense of community. So how does our plan shape a volunteer's experience with us? This is the story of John. He started volunteering with the Teen Center after seeing some advertisement online, and during his first session there, he met his friend Jake, and he was persuaded to be on board of this rotational volunteer program because he was really interested in the cool things he gets to do at different parts of the program that the organization offers. And throughout this process, he learns more about our organization's mission, the work we do, and our unique salsa. And in this process, he received multiple awards from the logistics system because he continuously engages with us. And even after the program, he does not have much time to come in regularly anymore. He still talks to all the friends he makes on Slacks, comes in occasionally to still volunteer with us, and continuously to donate us to offer us financial support. So from his story, we can see that our volunteering program will really help him to integrate into our family, understand what we do, and continuously to give us financial support. And next, I'm going to pass it to Brian for our second part.
Thank you, Siren. So the second part really is about teaching, more specifically monetizing the PYD through a continuing education module that's going to be taught in universities. The PYD, we think, is has a lot of potential. We think the competitive advantage really is in the fact that it can be customizable to the clients. We also think the challenges are that customizing to clients is going to be very labor or capital intensive. And we also think that the framework is untested beyond YLC's own salsa and own structure. We did some analysis, and we found that the CEM model of monetization would yield us the most profit. Licensing had a few problems because if we licensed it in its mass market form, we wouldn't be able to customize to our clients. And that would mean that we wouldn't be able to take any market share from AYD, which is a close competitor, also a mass market tool, and we would not be able to get the same profits that we would be able to get from CEM. If we implemented PYD by ourselves, we would get the core competencies of our model, but we would not be able to hit the profits that we get. More importantly, Impactful Consulting failed because the mission of YLC was not to do consulting. And going back to implement PYD ourselves would just be going back to what Impactful has done and failed. So we think that the CEM model is the way to go. Now, how does this look? We think that this can be broken up into two phases: customize and validate, and then monetize and influence. The customize and validate portion really is to make sure that this PYD model is applicable to any nonprofit across any number of industries. And so we plan to partner with other nonprofits to build the PYD model such as customizable and has core skills across various segments. We also plan to validate the salsa seeking strategy that YLC is very proud of. The next step is monetization. And for this, we want to look into schools, but particularly the American University for their Masters of Social Work program. We think that there's a steady flow of students who are interested in a program like this, and we think that the profit, or the year-on-year profit, is going to be about $30,000, a little bit more than that, for a class size of 21 students. We think that with the CEM model, it's going to be very scalable to universities at very low cost, and it's going to also impact students very well and across a broad array of industries. Now I hand the time over to Vaibhav to talk about partnering.
Thank you, Brian. So our third and final recommendation is to partner with Uber. So what we have here is a LAYC and Uber partnership, and what this partnership is a way for LAYC to actually gain some more revenue and diversify their revenue sources. So it does benefit LAYC in that it's a different source of revenue. But what's interesting is that it's a mutually beneficial program. It's a mutually beneficial partnership. So what happens is LAYC can actually offer many things to Uber as well. Particularly, Uber has started their Uber Spanish service, which would be great for the Latin American community, as well as there's been a lot of flack in the news recently about Uber versus taxi companies. This will really show the support in the community. So if we see here, this is a very simple mock-up of what it might look like. We would partner with Uber during the Fiesta DC, which is a one-week festival during the month of November. And one thing that's interesting to note is that we've added some little fun functionality here, meaning that once you actually donate to Uber, there's actually food trucks that actually pop up on the app, and you can actually go and get some really nice food. So we've added some really fun functionality as well. So now that we've gone through all of our solutions, let's look at the impact that it's actually going to have. So as you can see here, there's a significant amount of cash flow that's actually going to be gained by 2020 to actually diversify its revenue sources. But more than just that, it's also about the qualitative impact. So more than 1,500. All right, thank you very much. And now we'll open up the floor for questions.
You said donate to Uber, so is the idea to donate you to collaborate with one another?
Yeah, sure, no problem. So if we look at the Uber partnership more closely, essentially it's a partnership. So for 1 week, what would happen is, as you go on an Uber, there would be some functionality, as you can see here, to add some, to add like $1 or so to actually donate to LAYC. And so it's a mutually beneficial partnership in that, LAYC actually gains some more revenue, and Uber gains, some more credibility in that they're, seen as supporters of things in the community.
So Uber is not receiving donations.
So actually, Uber is receiving some donations. So Uber matches the donation to LAYC as well. So it's more, it's the consumer is also donating to LAYC as well as Uber is matching also.
Just to clarify, we're not giving money to Uber. Uber would be matching donations to us.
Correct.
So this would be part of their CSR.
Is this something that Uber has done in the past and there's precedent for it, or is this something that would be, LAYC is certainly successful within the realm of VC, but is one of many not-for-profits and massive companies. I'm curious about the feasibility of it.
So yes, actually Uber has done partnerships with a lot of nonprofits before in city of New York, even in DC and even in like Shanghai, India. So actually 2 years ago they did this kind of fun fundraising event. So Uber will list 5 nonprofit organizations in DC, and the passengers can choose which one they want to support, and they can like donate $1 to the organization. And at the end of the 2-week period, Uber will donate an additional $10,000 to the organization that has a maximum amount of support from all the Uber riders. So because there are previous successful cases, we think it's not going to be a very lengthy, hard process to get Uber to agree to partner with us. And also we add in the flavor of celebrating diversity and giving Uber a chance to show they really support the local music community. So it's a very peaceful thing.
Is it a full match? 100% match the donation?
So previously, I don't think there was a matching scheme in what they have done in the past. Uber, so the money that comes from Uber is the $10,000 total. That after the 2-week period of this donation drive, they'll donate an additional $10,000 to the charity that has the most support from the Uber riders.
So they have done something like a donation cap before for Russell Wilson's football charity out in Seattle. What they did is they would match it up to $5,000, but that's also a much lower scale charity. So we were thinking we could get the bar a little bit higher. Understandably, they wouldn't want to match if we had one of our big donors get into an Uber car and donate a couple $1,000 a lot of times, but we think it would be feasible to be able to get them to match up to a certain level.
So I know you guys have talked, you can explain where I want to go over doing that, but how do you expect the sort of various streams to reduce your impact or the need for something?
Sure. So I can take on that.
Yeah.
So if we look here at the financials, we can see that a lot of the financials come from the CDM program, and that's really a strong generator of additional funding for LAYC. So initially we would start out in one school, but sort of ramping up over time. We did some research around the DC area and found that there are 8 Masters of Social Work programs around the DC area, and so there's a lot of opportunity to actually capitalize on these Masters of Social Work programs. And so a lot of the funding comes from this the solution that we have. But in the end, by 2020, about 7 to 8% of all end cash flows, meaning that after expenses have been taken into account, will be from all of our programs that we're suggesting in our presentation.
And I guess just to jump in on that, we also really like the qualitative impact it's going to have on the volunteer network that we have. Right now, nothing's formalized in the volunteer mechanism from start to finish, and we think that there's a lot of unquantifiable but really good externalities that can come out from treating volunteers like they're long-term donors and getting them in through the process right. So that's also something, the impact that we consider to be really core to their mission and really dear to our hearts.
So CEM is one of your biggest profit drivers, right? I guess you only consider, I see just the cost. I'm just wondering on the actual revenue side, how you're measuring that revenue, because you have profit in one of the slides, but I see the costs are lower. Can you go more into kind of more of the revenue stream, how you got kind of there?
Sure, not a problem. So what we did was we took our tuition per year of an average, social work program, looked at how many credits this PYD would cost, this, sort of CEM program, found out what the revenue would be per student, and then looked at what kind of a percent of fee LAYC could actually charge a school to actually take back for themselves. So obviously 100% of that revenue that the university gets wouldn't be for LAYC, but since we are teaching the course, a certain percent of that would be given back. So we weren't able to find actual numbers for that, so we did a big sensitivity on what sort of range would be appropriate based off of what kind of tuition you might have and what kind of percent fee for LAYC there might be. And so as you can see, sort of in the middle, about $32,000. Ultimately, the range is all positive, pretty good. Expenses include hiring that teacher, a lot of experience expenses as well. If the teacher comes from LAYC, we might have to replace all the duties that he or she might may not be able to do with another employee. So all the expenses taken into account those costs as well.
And so just I guess back up again.
Sure.
So you're the university paying or the other way around, or how? I guess you have tuition, you have revenue per student. So how is that? How you did it?
Sure. So it's sort of like a royalty fee, right? So we have the curriculum, but they have the facilities for us and the structure for them to provide the classroom. So they have the students, but we supply the curriculum. So we take a certain cut as LAYC because we are providing the curriculum for this program.
Why, in the same way that Uber is trying to cut costs of taxis, why wouldn't another nonprofit come in and give the curriculum for free, pay the students that they train, and put them right through the program, instead of taking a cut from the university that's struggling to even get people to sign up for nonprofit?
Okay. That's probably a fair consideration. One thing we want to do is at the start of the program, the key thing we think differentiates it is partnering with other nonprofits actually. So kind of create this as like different modules. So if you're interested in youth, if you're interested in elderly care, if you're interested in substance abuse, you can kind of have a different kind of program set as you go throughout it. So what we want to do is essentially meet with other people, show them our PYD framework, and kind of iterate with them to see if it's something that could become a university class. The idea is that we take our PYD, our way that we deal with the salsa, the culture of an organization. We go to other organizations, see how they deal with like what they think makes them special, and try and develop this course among a partnership with nonprofits. Obviously, they could go there and create their own entire course, but much like it would be a bit of a stretch for us to become consultants for other people. For them to just straight up become teachers for free wouldn't necessarily be in a lot of people's mantras. I don't think a lot of nonprofits would say, hey, let's take one of our senior people and let's go have them teach courses and not get paid for it. Because as like American University would probably be strapped for cash, so is the nonprofit. Would you guys know?
So if you're partnering with other nonprofits, would they also be participating in this and getting a cut of that revenue? Would that then account for your revenue projections?
Yeah, so it is a profit sharing mechanism. So obviously, if we are teaching the course about youth, then we would just do everything ourselves because we're experts at that. But if we are partnering with someone in substance abuse, then they would definitely take a portion of the cut as well. So the 20% is sort of an average number that we've sort of used and weighted average that we've taken across the whole program.
Students that are taking your curriculum have to go in, join LA, where they kind of do whatever
So this is a Master of Social Work program. So we do need a lot of caseworkers as we go throughout our recruiting process. But I think what we wanted to focus on more is essentially how we could monetize our PYD framework. I understand that we're worried if they're going other places. We were thinking of it almost like a capstone course. So if you're in business school, you do a lot of case studies, things like that. And this would really show the culture and like process improvement that is in place at local nonprofits in the area. We don't see it as necessarily being only a recruiting tool, but more of something that they would be interested in as they go into nonprofit fields, of how you kind of deal with a lot of these issues that you have in going from effort to outcome and kind of measuring your impact. Okay. So as we go through this, we talked about we want to plan for Pablo's future by planning our own financially. So the key behind this was the idea that there are people out there who we can't reach right now that we could with more funding, and that's why we want to focus on bringing these successful programs to as many people as possible and not being beholden to just government expansion. So who is Pablo? I know we presented this kind of fictitious character who has a history, but he essentially represents everyone that we can serve right now who would fit into LAYC's programming. The idea is that we want to get funding so we can continue to expand our programming to as many people as possible who are in need of the services. So the two things that we need with funding are first sustainability and scalability. So back in 2013, when the government shut down, we lost all of our short-term grant funding, and if it weren't for the help of Capital One Bank, we probably would have had to shut down some of our programs and wouldn't have been supported at the time. So what we want is to be able to diversify our funds enough to make sure we're stable for the future, and also have funding if we need to create new initiatives and we need to expand our services. And then finally, scalability. So things that will continue to grow, much like the partnerships across universities, as we grow. So first of all, engaging. What we want to do here, the whole idea, is that we want to take people who are simply seen as short-term labor right now, but the people who are doing it are really actually the community. They're the doctors, lawyers, people who are donating to causes. We really want to make that connection personable. We currently view them as simply doing one thing, but in reality they're a huge boon to our program. Moving forward to the teaching, I know the big focus for LAYC right now is how can we make money off of our success. And it's really tough to say, if I were very good at business, I can't just go up to people and say, hey, this is all the success I've had, trust me, I can help you as well, especially if my main goal isn't consulting. So we're worried about making sure that A, we're not turning into simply consultants for other organizations, so we're focusing on our own, and then finally that we're not dumbing this down and licensing it in a way that there wouldn't be a market for, as just a basic way to teach with youth, as there's many resources out there, and establishing that would take a lot of resources to get going that probably wouldn't be recruited. Instead, what we want to do is we want to partner with local universities and teach people where people are putting money into finding out about how nonprofits work. So as you're going through a Master's of Social Work program, you're really focused on how nonprofits work, how you can measure your outcome when you get a job, and this is what we want to focus on and give them helpful teaching. And then finally, when it comes to partnering, we want to look for things that are mutually beneficial for us. So we don't want to just say, pick some random organization who has no interest in us, but focus on Uber, who's releasing their Spanish language functionality across multiple different cities right now, and is clearly making a Hispanic push, and partner with them in ways that make sense for us and are going to sustain us in the future with things like yearly events. So that's the real key. We want sustainability year in and year out. So as we make this plan for the future, we don't want a one-time fundraiser. We don't want volunteers who come for one day and do a drive. We want people who are engaged in us, who are more likely to volunteer, who are more likely to donate, and things that we can count on every year. And then finally, we want scalability. We want to be able to support every kid out there who we currently can't reach. One way we're currently doing that is with the focus of the Promoter Pathway program. It recently launched in California, and what we're doing is we're taking our successful programs and we're moving them elsewhere. And the way they currently did that was through a social innovation fund. But there's not always going to be a social innovation fund every time we need to reach another student, which is why we want to develop our own things that can be scaled going forward. And then finally, we're planning Pablo's future. So as we plan Pablo's future, we have to plan ours as well. So we know that we have a lot of work to do to continue to improve funding. It's not easy to get off the government dime, especially when these grants are so huge compared to a lot of the fundraising events we have. 74% government grants is really high, and we want to see that go down in the future. It's not going to be someone tomorrow, like a Bill or Melinda Gates, who comes in and gives us millions and millions of dollars, because that's just not how this works. So as we put in the work to work and find funding in all the different places we can then create plans for more children out there, like Pablo, who need a plan for how to get education, how to get a job, and how to find sustainable living and become a part of their community. And so that's why we would like to plan for Pablo's future.